Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Champions Podcast. We hope y'all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and Champ and I did, and we're very blessed and grateful. And today we're going to dive into another topic that is related to Christmas time. And it's obviously, if you're a Christian, this is something that a lot of people find of great value is Advent. And I know that can mean a little bit different to different people, sort of like at Easter time when you may give up something for so many days and that looks different for everyone. Some people participate in it, some people don't. But Champ is going to dive in as the pastor today, especially to talk about Advent and what it means to him and just his message today on his approach on that. So, Champ, what does Advent, let me get my words correct today. Advent mean to you?
Yeah, we're excited about this one. And Advent is a season of waiting. And while I kind of dive into it, I'm going to ask Heather to be looking up. We're going to do this on the fly. So I'm going to be asking Heather to look up what Google and what definitions say the Advent really is, first of all. And then we're going to take it from a couple different perspectives. For me, Advent is a season of waiting. Um, it's a kind of an aspect of a longing. I'm waiting for something. I can remember, and the best way that I always tell this story is waiting for that perfect gift. Waiting for and it didn't have to be a gift, but waiting for maybe that person to arrive for the holidays, or waiting for that person to come through the door, maybe even during Thanksgiving. Waiting for test results. I can remember in college and in seminary waiting at the end of the semester, because you would take a lot of times for us, we would take final exams. Those final exams would be graded, and yeah, professors had other classes to grade and to scale, but I can remember that final day. Some professors were quick, some were not so fast. Some waited to the very last minute, and so it's kind of like an agonizing wait of I wonder what's next, or I knew you passed, but did you score as highly as you would have wanted to on maybe a test, or did test results medically come back the way that you envisioned them to? Heather can speak to that firsthand. Um, but it's a season of waiting and longing and expectation. And so what does Rabbi Google say about Advent?
Well, if I Google Advent for the Bible, it says that Advent signifies the twofold coming of Jesus Christ, his first coming at Christmas to save humanity and his future, second coming to judge the world. The word comes from the Latin adventus, meaning coming, which reflects the season's focus on both anticipating Jesus' birth and awaiting his final return. Though not mentioned in the Bible, the tradition of Advent involves preparation, prayer, and reflection based on biblical themes of hope, peace, love, and joy.
So I think that's a great definition. And I think about and this is when we'll get some into some questions. But I think more about the idea of the prep prepping the house, or prepping a space. Um, Normally we would decorate the house in a day. Mom was always so fast at it. This year, Kelty and I have decided to take kind of that role on ourselves. And when she's here, and so like it's taken a little bit longer. We're almost there. I can see the end in sight. But this year it's kind of it also, if I'm honest, Heather, it feels kind of fast because of the way that the calendar fell this year with Thanksgiving being so late. And so like you've got those 4 weeks of Advent, but you've got the idea that like it's already today is December the 4th.
Hmm.
And so like we'll be at Christmas before we know it. And so sometimes we're not a patient people. I've said several times on the podcast for different episodes, we like the Amazon way of life, the bought today, delivered tomorrow. And we have to understand that that's how Amazon works. That's not how reality works.
And you talk about decorating, but I think, and a lot of people contest this, but there's no right or wrong time to decorate. I look at it that
Come on now, come
if
on
you want to
now.
put your decorations up before Thanksgiving, depending on, everybody's family, like my family has to get together earlier, like my siblings because of schedules and everything. But there's no right or wrong. If it brings you joy, do it. Why should people judge you for putting up a Christmas tree in November? Like, just do it whenever you want to do it. You're still celebrating Jesus, so just put the tree up, okay?
And I kind of hold to a different, in some ways, and that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of the season is I love to see who says yeah and who says no, who says it's too quick, and he says it can never be quick enough. Um, I and one of the interesting things about Christmas in a Christian tradition is Christmas doesn't just end on Christmas Day. So there's, there's all this time that we spend preparing, and
And I
I don't,
think some of that too, Champ, is I think people the decorations for Christmas, like obviously Easter decorations are pretty themselves, but I think there's just something about Christmas decorations with all the lights, and it's kind of like I don't want to say glorified, but you kind of see what I'm saying. Like it just kind of hits people in a different way. And I think that's why so many people just enjoy it so much. Like there's people that don't even take down their decorations till after January when you're supposed to take them down before. But I mean, I think it just brings so much joy just looking at the lights and kind of maybe you stay in reflection longer. I don't know. But like you said, Christmas is definitely more than just one day a year.
well, and a little bit of a history lesson. So the reason I say it's longer than January 25th is because in the Christian calendar, there's something we call Epiphany, which is it usually falls around January the 6th. And that was thought in some ways to be or represent it was a representation of the day that the wise men or the season or the time that the wise men came to visit the baby Jesus. Another little history note. So we often in our mangers or in our kind of nativity scenes, we often put the shepherds and the wise men, um, or the shepherds, the wise men, and the angels. Um, and that's not generally how it went. I know that folks say, well, how do we know we weren't there? But we do have pretty solid, if you go back and do some history and some studying, there is clear representation that there were differences between the shepherds and the wise men when they came to adore, um, to glorify the infant. And so, like, one of the reasons we do the January 6th is because that's Epiphany. That's thought to be the season when the wise men came to visit and to offer the Christ child the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And one of the other episodes that we may do in this season is the symbolic references for all three of those gifts and what they mean in the Christmas story. Now, another little fun fact. So, when in the general population of the story timeline, we often say, okay, Epiphany, January 6th. But when was Jesus approximately born? Probably somewhere the early church says around probably the month of July, or the wise men didn't come until he was probably around 2 to 3 years old. So that's another reason why there's kind of a differentiation between the shepherds. The shepherds we pretty much can tell came on the night of or very close to the actual birth date. Whereas the wise men are a little bit further along in the process. And so even for them, like you have to think about it, this whole idea of waiting, there was a sense of waiting for the shepherds. Not that they fully understood what was going on when they saw like this grand thing happen in the sky. Um, or like when you think about like they were told, go and find. So go in search for go get prepared. You're gonna see something. And also the wise men, what did they do? They followed a star. They followed, astronomy in that way to lead them to a place where they would offer gifts, respect, homage, just a sense of joy. Can you imagine? And I think sometimes people have the hard time of saying, well, how can you even want to, or why would you even want to think about those things? And I sit here and say, personally, I'm just a thinker, so my brain spends a lot more time wondering. Some people say, well, I just don't really, it doesn't really care. I just think it's neat to think of those things. I think it puts a whole different perspective on the stories of Scripture or of our faith for those of us who are Christians, to say, like, this is a real historical, literal event that happened, and here's how we celebrate it, and here's why. So,
And do you have obviously you probably read Advent. Um, do you have like the same one you read every year? Or do you just pick a different one each year?
so what do you mean, like a devotional or something?
Yeah.
Oh, so I usually pick a different one each year. So there I have the longer that I spend in ministry, the more I find myself being attracted more to series in preaching. And so, like, for example, last year when I preached through the story of Advent, so the Advent candle is um, candle of hope, peace, joy, and love. Um, so if you see an Advent wreath within churches or Christian traditions, and you hear them talk about that, kind of the order that they fall. Um, so this past week was the candle of hope. That comes from like the prophet Isaiah, Isaiah 6, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, light has dawned. That was the hope. The hope, peace, the peace of the promise, the peace that the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father would come and bring about that peace in all the areas of life that were broken, um, and joy. Um, think about the joy that the shepherds or the wise men felt when they saw what they had been told was happening. And the love, I think, comes for us. Not that all of it doesn't come for us, but I think the love comes in a whole different perspective because it brings us into the story. So going back to your original question, I do read different things every year. For example, this year, instead of focusing specifically on the Advent story of the different pieces of hope, I decided a couple of months ago to do the songs of Christmas, or like pick a few of the hymns, um, and just preach on the story behind him. I'm big into music. It is fully understood that I probably listen to more music, um, on the average than anybody, and I watch more television, or don't watch as much television as I do listening to music. But for example, last week I did "Come Thou Long Expected Jesus," which was a Charles Wesley Advent hymn. Charles Wesley was the brother of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism. So it's kind of a historical episode. This week I'm doing more of the old famous, um, uh, what is the guy who was on the Gaithers? Mark Lowry. The Mark Lowry famous song, Mary Did You Know? One of the famous all-time favorite Christmas hymns. And so, like, the differences of what did she know? What did all of the stories that have her in it before kind of up building up to the birth? What did she know? What did her obedience say about her? Those kinds of things. Next week we'll do O Holy Night. And then the last week of Advent we'll do the song Joy to the World, the Lord is come. And so it's just those fun little snippets. I and I struggle, don't get me wrong, and don't hear this and say, I struggle because I can feel that probably some people hear this and say, you're just nerding out. Well, let's just be honest, I probably am. I'm not gonna deny it, but I think it is intriguing. I don't know, it's like putting I think learning for me and like these kind of questions of the history and the understanding is like a puzzle piece. When you get, I have a bunches of puzzles around my house. Some of them I've done, some of them I haven't. But when you get a puzzle of 100 or 1,000 pieces, and they're in a box, and you see what the front of the box looks like, um, you think, "Ooh, I feel like I can do this really quick, or I can do that really fast." And then you open the box, you pour out all the puzzle pieces, and they're scattered everywhere. And trying to find
And
all of
you're
the,
like, what in the world have I
what did
signed
I,
myself up for?
what did I just do? Why did I buy this if I'm really not? Kelsey and I tried to do one a month ago, and we poured it out on the table, and I got about an hour into it, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this. But when the pieces start fitting together of why and what and how, it just makes I think it makes it more, at least for me, it makes it more fun, and it makes it where I want to know more because every time I grab another puzzle piece to either the history or the Christian tradition or the reason for the song or what does scripture say about it or why would I care, when did the wise men actually come, when did Jesus actually, when was he born? Like when you start digging in and you start finding those little nuggets, it's like, ah, I didn't know that. And then when you share it with somebody else, it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, I don't know, it just makes it more fun. And I
And
love
it's
tell.
and it's so important for us as adults, obviously, to understand and know the meaning But I think there's something special too about like a young child that is learning about Christmas and like obviously Advent and just is not only a lesson for them, but it's helping them put those pieces together on why Jesus is so glorified. You know, obviously everyday life, but they have a holiday like Easter and Christmas, and those pieces start coming together because there's so many stories that surround the topic that they're able to participate in. Maybe if they go to church, they might participate in a church play or the little singing of the children's choir or whatever it may be. And so things start clicking for them too of why they have presents, why they have decorations, why everybody says happy birthday Jesus. And I mean, for their little minds it starts clicking, and it's just really fascinating to see them or to see just Christmas through their eyes. I mean, there's just something special. And I'm sure as a pastor, when you have the children come up every Sunday, there's something about that, but also especially with Christmas and Easter, you've probably seen that spark in their eye a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I guess for me, like I have the one thing that I can say that I've had to learn or teach myself is the like I can do all this studying and all this preparation, but if I don't make it relevant for the person, they aren't receptive to it. So that's the hard piece, right? Like like I can say all of this. I can say this is what Epiphany is. I can say this is what the church says. I can say this is what Google says. But why? And how does it affect me? And I'll be honest, I think sometimes I struggle in that realm because I get so in my head. But it brings it back and it's like, okay, what does Advent mean to me? It's a season of waiting. What have you been waiting for and why? Um, what am I waiting for? Um, we planned for 6 months for a wedding. Boom, it was there. Now what do we plan for next? And so just the different seasons of life and where they are. Uh,
And I think I may add to the end of this episode a video. I actually saw it on and sent it to Champ because I love CeCe Winans, the gospel singer, and I believe she's also a pastor in some aspect. And she was talking about how we're running a race, but we can't run it without him. And we have to teach not only ourselves, but we have to teach the younger generation that same mentality, because if you're not living for him, who are you living for? Yes, you can love yourself. And I say all the time, I'm living for me, I'm living for my family, my fur babies, all that. But at the end of the day, are you really living for Jesus? That's the most important thing, because I actually wrote a song recently, and one of the lyrics and it'll be coming out shortly, but the last lyric, one of it is, I want the one way ticket to heaven so I can see my Savior's face. And I thought about that, like nobody wants to go to heaven and come back. That's not possible, but we also want to get there. What are we going to do to ensure that we get there? I'm actually wearing a new shirt I got recently that says Make Heaven Crowded. And on the back it says, Proof of a living,
I
loving
love
God.
that song. I love that song. I love
And
that song I was reading, but I love
I
that
said,
song.
I guess, need to wear it out in public and just remind people like life isn't just about you. You need to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to ensure your soul goes to heaven. I mean, I want to see heaven crowded. And obviously, we don't have control over whether people celebrate Christmas in the way we do or do Advent or any of that. But we hope that if you aren't there yet, know that both of us are willing to speak to you and encourage you to do that, because there's truly no joy that can compare to knowing you are a child of God, you're loved by God, and you're forgiven. And I sit some days and just literally think, wow, he really did that for people that didn't even know his name. You know, the gravity of just thinking about what he has done for us, not what he's done in our life now, but what he did then. You know, that it's just so incredible to think that somebody could be that selfless and say, no, I'm going to take it. I want to do it. And what a miraculous day to even think about back in the Bible when there was the birth of the Savior. I mean, just that just blows my mind in a good way to think, wow, it
You know,
just,
there's two other things I want, or three other things I want to go back to for a second. One of those is, and you kind of hit on it, so that's why it made me think of it. What was it like back then? That's kind of where I got the whole idea of the songs. Mary, did you know? What did Mary know? What did she not know? Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water? That he would heal the blind, raise the dead? Like, can you imagine thinking about like what did your mom know? Probably not much at all. She just knew that she was having a baby girl. Um,
mm-hmm,
and look at where you are. And I think in our lives, we don't see ourselves, and I'm not encouraging that we should, but we don't see ourselves as these people that we slowly become by His grace, but that we know that He's got a purpose and a plan, and He had a purpose and a plan for Jesus, and that was to be born, to live, to teach, and to die that we might have life and have it to the fullest, but have not just the life now, but life eternal. And so, like, I had a church member my first year say, I love the song Mary Did You Know? Have you ever thought about what your mom knew about you? Would she ever have imagined that you or Heather would be doing what we're doing? I don't know. I probably don't know. But it's just the life that we live. And again, life in itself is it's like Advent, it's such a gift. It's kind of that thing that I say we unwrap every day.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and we get to wake up, and you know this better than anybody else I know, Heather, of the gift that it is to be able to breathe and live and move and be off of medications or dialysis or whatever the case may be. Like, that's a gift, and we don't know how long that gift will last. But the beautiful thing about it is that we are eternal beings, meaning that we will never die. When we leave this earth, this place that we're in right now, we either have two opportunities. And I know for a fact that I'm going to and that I want to spend eternity with him so that I can help my nerd out brain, um, so that I can go and sit down with him and have these come like Jesus. What was it like?
Yeah, I
What was
feel like I have a lot of questions. Mom always says, well, just ask him when you get there.
and then I'm like, well, when I get there, the questions aren't going to matter because I'm just going to be so enthralled by just his presence.
I
So
always like saying, I want to go, but I just don't want to go right now. I'd like to enjoy some more life and then have that. I don't see it as just because I go through challenges like that my life's bitter. I actually look at it as He's given me such a joyous blessing of living this life. And then I don't look at it as like, ugh. I look at it as like, and then, like an exclamation point on it to say, but now you are going to be rewarded and be with me forever and never have to worry about health and be with loved ones. So I just think it's such a great message to just strive to be with Jesus. Live your life now, but ensure that you can get that one way ticket to heaven. And Is there anything else today, Champ, that you would like to add to just wrap up this episode?
Uh, no, just enjoy the gift that you're given. Enjoy the gift of today. Enjoy the gift of tomorrow. But don't forget to enjoy the gift of the present.
And I want to add to that, and I've personally been seeing that there's been a lot of loss with people on even social media recently. And obviously, it's been some people I know personally and some people I haven't known but just seen posts. And our hearts are with everyone that has obviously lost a significant loss this season. That is something that's incredibly difficult and hard to process because the holidays you think of family and being together and just cheerful, and nobody expects to face loss. So we just want to say our hearts are with everyone that is facing that or maybe going through a serious health challenge right now. Just know that you're in our hearts and we're praying for everyone to just be able to enjoy the season. And honestly, if you can't do a lot, that's okay. You don't have to do extravagant stuff to celebrate Jesus. So we hope y'all enjoyed this episode. I'm so glad Champ was able to share about Advent from the pastor's perspective. That was a lot of useful knowledge, and I think it'll actually encourage people to go back and read. Maybe I'll even need to do it myself because a few things you hit on are like, I don't quite remember that just like that. Maybe I need to refresh my memory. But yeah, so we hope y'all enjoyed this episode and we hope y'all are going to have a Merry Christmas. And whenever you're celebrating with your family, I know a lot of people may not be able to celebrate exactly on December 25th. So if you're doing early stuff, we still hope that you enjoy it with your family. And God bless you all.